Hello everyone, welcome back to Onichan. Today, I will continue to introduce to you an action movie, which tells the story of a group of assassins, who fight against an evil empire. But it's also quite touching. Now let's start watching the movie. This guy's name is Tatsumi. This is his first time going to the capital. It's like when you first arrive in the city. So he doesn't know anything. Seeing a lavish city in front of him, his eyes shine even brighter. Like when you see something under a girl's skirt. Just by looking, you can tell he's a country boy. And he will begin his career to build his name here. After that, Tatsumi goes to apply to join the military. But he only gets to work as a new recruit. So he's not happy about that. He quickly demands a fight with the officer. And ends up being kicked out. Suddenly, at this moment, a girl with big breasts appears. Saying she will help him. She says, if you want to join the military, you have to give her some money. So Tatsumi, with a cheerful face, quickly hands over all his belongings to her. After that, he sat waiting for her at the bar, but still hadn't seen her return. At this point, the bar owner told him that he had been tricked. So Tatsumi lost all his money in one day, and could only stand there cursing the girl in his mind. With no money left, he had to sleep by the roadside. Suddenly, a young lady appeared, and stepped down to introduce herself as Arya. Seeing Tatsumi's pitiful condition, she took him to her home. Upon arriving at the mansion, Arya's father and mother warmly welcomed him. Tatsumi felt that Arya was truly a good person. While talking, Tatsumi told them that he came from a small village, and he was also traveling with two other friends, named Ieyasu and Seo. Because the village was heavily taxed by the empire, and was running out of food, the three of them had come to the capital to make a living and save their village. By accident, they ran into a group of bandits, which caused the three of them to get separated. At this point, Arya's father promised to help Tatsumi find his other friends. The next morning, while shopping with Arya, a soldier told Tatsumi, it turns out that all the power in this kingdom is in the hands of the prime minister. And the king is just a child. And also told him, in the capital, there is a famous assassin group called Night Raid. They are the source of fear for the entire town. Unexpectedly, at night, these assassins took action. They attacked Arya's mansion. Sensing the danger, Tatsumi ran outside. He saw the group of assassins. Although the mansion was heavily guarded, it couldn't stop the assassins. They easily eliminated all the guards, and killed Arya's entire family. At this point, Tatsumi decided to protect Arya. When he found her, the assassin girl had already arrived. With no other choice, Tatsumi had to fight her. Unexpectedly, she ignored him, and jumped straight to where the soldier was. As she was about to kill Arya, Tatsumi rushed in. Although she didn't want to kill Tatsumi, he was determined to protect Arya. So both of them charged at each other and fought. It seemed like Tatsumi would be defeated by her. But thanks to the statue the village chief gave him before he left, Tatsumi was saved. Just as she was about to kill him, the older sister who tricked him out of money appeared. She said she would show Tatsumi Arya's true face. Now, the door to the room has been opened. It made Tatsumi unable to believe his eyes. It turns out that they often lure people in difficult situations, to torture them and play with them until they die. But what shocked Tatsumi the most at that moment, was seeing his friend Seo, who had been tortured and killed by them. And Ieyasu was also here. But he had been tortured by Arya, in a state of great suffering. At this moment, Arya revealed her cruel face. She mocked and cursed those who were beneath her. When the assassin girl was about to strike, Tatsumi stopped her again. This time, he drew his sword, and killed that wicked young lady with his own hands. Ieyasu was happy that Tatsumi had avenged him. But he could no longer keep fighting, and passed away in front of Tatsumi. At this point, the big-breasted girl had her eyes on Tatsumi, seeing him as a perfect fit to become an assassin, and decided to take Tatsumi back to their base. At that moment, he was the only hope left for the villagers. Now, she came to find him, introducing herself as Leonie. Since Tatsumi was still unsure, he hadn't decided whether to join the group. Now, Leonie took him to meet everyone. The older sister's name is Sheele. She may look gentle, but if you're not careful, she'll attack you in a dangerous spot immediately. There's a proud little lowly girl named Mine. She loves to tease Tatsumi, because he's so weak. Next is the strong guy with the curly hair, named Bullet, and he's the one in armor. But even though he looks strong on the outside, He might actually have a sore butt. Here's a perverted guy who likes to secretly watch girls bathe, named Lubbock, and the last one is the girl who fought Tatsumi, named Akame. Unexpectedly, at this moment, he meets another girl. Turns out she's the leader of the group. When they return to the base, the leader directly invites Tatsumi to join the group again. At this point, he learned that the empire had rotted due to the cruel prime minister. The leader of the group said that they had a revolutionary army to overthrow the empire and fight against the prime minister. The assassin group Night Raid is also part of this force, specializing in carrying out secret assassination missions. So Tatsumi agreed to join the Night Raid assassin group. At that moment, the group received a mission from a woman who had sold her body multiple times to hire them to eliminate a very cruel soldier named Ogre. Tatsumi also wanted to join this mission, but Akame criticized him, saying he was just a new recruit with no experience, and he would easily be defeated by Ogre. But Tatsumi was still determined to prove to Akame that he could kill Ogre. So, the leader girl allowed Tatsumi to take on this mission. Alongside Leone and Akame, the group split up, with Leone and Akame finishing their targets. Only Tatsumi remained. At this moment, Tatsumi pretended to be a civilian to approach Ogre. He led him to a deserted alley. When preparing to strike him, unexpectedly, Ogre had also noticed something strange about Tatsumi, and began attacking him. But he was still one step slower than Tatsumi. Thinking he had defeated him, Tatsumi was surprised that Ogre didn't fall easily, and he was continuously pressured by him. But then, Ogre insulted the woman who had hired them, which made Tatsumi furious, so he cut off both of Ogre's arms, leaving him disabled so he could no longer harm women, and sent him on his way to heaven. When he returned, he proved to Akame that he was indeed powerful. Although Akame seemed like a cold-hearted girl, she was happy that Tatsumi hadn't been hurt. Tatsumi realized the warmth in Akame. The next day, their base was suddenly invaded by many enemies. So, the group worked together to stop them. At this point, Natsumi went with the curly-haired guy, and treated him as his leader. He transformed to show his strength in front of Tatsumi. The armor he was wearing is called Tegu. Tegu is an ancient weapon, and there are 48 types of Tegu created in the world, granting the wielder special powers. The Tegu that Akame uses is a cursed sword, and just a small wound from it will instantly kill the person. The little lowly girl's Tegu is a gun, which can create shockwaves to destroy the enemy. The glasses-wearing older sister possesses a Tegu in the form of scissors, capable of cutting through anything in the world. Leone possesses a Tegu that allows her to transform into a beast, enhancing both her strength and speed, with an extremely high healing ability. As for this guy, his Tegu consists of steel wires, which can bind and set traps for enemies, and are incredibly sharp. On Tatsumi's side, he witnessed the power of the curly-haired guy, who eliminated the enemy in the blink of an eye. Tatsumi was amazed by the strength of the group members. The next day, Tatsumi received a mission to go on an assignment with the lowly girl Mine. But unexpectedly, Mine turned out to be a heavy sleeper. So Tatsumi was furious because he had to wake her up. When he opened the door and entered her room, he was greeted with this scene. As a result, Mine shot him in a very sensitive area. In the evening, the group received a new mission, which was to eliminate a noble under the Prime Minister's command, who had been continuously kidnapping women and torturing them. Tatsumi continued to work with Mine, but he saw her seriousness while carrying out the mission, and her sharpshooting skills. With just one shot, she eliminated the target, which amazed him. At this moment, Mine told Tatsumi about her past. Mine is a mixed-race child, and from a young age, she suffered discrimination, beatings, and brutal torture, until she joined the Revolutionary Army. Mine made a vow not to let other children endure the same fate as hers. When they arrived at the rally point, an enemy suddenly appeared and attacked Mine from behind. Tatsumi immediately pushed Mine out of the way and took the attack from the enemy. Mine continued to attack him, but he easily dodged her strikes. At that moment, Tatsumi also joined the fight and managed to control him. Tatsumi told Mine to keep shooting the enemy, because he trusted her sharpshooting abilities. This made her emotional towards the idiot in front of her. So, she ended up shooting him a large hole in the chest. At that moment, Mine acknowledged Tatsumi's courage, but then scolded him. because he almost became a headless corpse. So, the two of them started arguing again. But at that moment, a very dangerous enemy appeared in the city, targeting Night Raid. His name was Zank the Executioner, and he was continuously killing people in the town by decapitating them. Tatsumi was still training hard every day with his older brother to get stronger. In the evening, the team leader gave them a mission to eliminate Zank the Executioner, who was also a Tegu user. So, the team entered the town. At that moment, Zank stood from a distance, using his Tegu. Observing the group's movements, he chose Tatsumi as his first target. Tatsumi suddenly ran into his friend Seo and chased her to a plaza. But he didn't realize that it was just an illusion created by Zank's Tegu to lure Tatsumi away from the group. Realizing he was the target, Tatsumi prepared to fight Zank, but was surprised to find that he could read Tatsumi's thoughts. Zank easily dodged Tatsumi's attacks, thanks to his Tegu's ability to read minds. This made Tatsumi realize he was facing a very strong opponent. But Tatsumi didn't give up, continuing to charge at him and attack. Zank wanted to see the look of despair on Tatsumi's face, so he kept playing with him. Unexpectedly, this time, Tatsumi used a very fast speed to attack him, and this caused him to be injured because he couldn't read Tatsumi's thoughts in time. However, in return, Tatsumi was also injured after that attack. Zank, furious, crazily charged at Tatsumi, but Akame quickly ran over to stop him. At this point, it was revealed that his Tegu also had the ability to see through things. Before Akame could see more of the cloth inside, she attacked Zank continuously with a very fast speed, putting him at a disadvantage, but he still refused to give up and began countering Akame's attacks. At this moment, he used his Tegu ability, causing Akame to see her younger sister, the person Akame loved most. Seeing Akame frozen in place, he immediately charged at her to attack. However, unexpectedly, Akame immediately counterattacked, leaving him greatly surprised. He didn't know that Akame's goal was to kill the younger sister she loved most. Both charged at each other, attacking with incredible speed, but his sword shattered, and he was ultimately finished off by Akame. Finally, they had completed their mission. At that moment, Tatsumi realized he needed to get even stronger to catch up with everyone. The next morning, when he woke up, he saw his older sister Sheele, wearing glasses, sleeping next to him. Today, it was his sister's turn to train him. So, his sister made him practice swimming while wearing armor to experience what it feels like to almost drown. Although very clumsy, she was a very warm person and also very beautiful. While trying to flirt, Tatsumi was teased by his older brother. When he returned, the captain handed him Zank's Tegu. He was very happy because he had finally obtained a Tegu. So Tatsumi tried to activate its power. And the first thing he saw was this. Perhaps because it knew this guy was too much of a womanizer. The Tegu refused to accept Tatsumi. At this moment, Tatsumi thought there might be a Tegu that could revive his friends. But his older brother immediately rejected the idea, saying that he only had one life, and there was no Tegu capable of bringing the dead back to life. This made Tatsumi feel utterly despairing, knowing that he had truly lost his friends. Sheele came to comfort Tatsumi and hugged him from behind, making Tatsumi feel a warm sense of comfort from Sheele. And perhaps Sheele was also beginning to feel moved by Tatsumi. On the Imperial side, the actions of the Night Raid assassins had caught the attention of the Prime Minister, because they kept killing his guards. He called General Esdeath back. She was a terrifyingly strong and ruthless person. The next day, when Tatsumi was walking with his older sister Leonie, the busty one, they were chased by a group of people. The reason was that his older sister had borrowed money from them, eaten 10 TED dishes, and still hadn't paid it back. At this point, Tatsumi got lost and met a cute girl named Seryu. This girl was a guard of the Empire with an absolute love for justice. Seeing Tatsumi lost, she came to help him. But what surprised Tatsumi more was the strange dog she had with her, which looked a bit silly. Named Koro, Seryu told Tatsumi that this silly-looking dog was actually a Tegu, which shocked him. After leading Tatsumi back, Seryu left, but Tatsumi didn't know that Soryu's goal was to destroy the Night Raid to avenge Ogre, the blind commander that Tatsumi had killed. As he was her mentor, In the evening, while his glasses-wearing older sister and the loli were on their way to complete a mission, they were ambushed. The one who ambushed them was none other than Seryu. Seryu always believed in absolute justice, thinking that Night Raid was a group of demons, so she made up her mind to destroy them. At this point, Mine kept attacking, but the silly-looking dog transformed and leapt in to shield her. When this happened, the dog no longer looked silly. So, Seryu ordered Koro to attack Sheele, but she managed to cut it. She thought it was dead, but surprisingly, Koro got back up, even bigger than before, no matter how much it was attacked. Koro's wounds kept healing. Seryu ordered Koro to continue transforming and charge at Sheele. Mine backed away and launched a powerful attack towards the dog. However, she still couldn't destroy it. Meanwhile, Sheele seized the opportunity to ambush Seryu and used her ultimate technique to attack her. This overwhelmed Seryu, forcing her to continuously retreat. Sheele cut off both of Sarayu's arms. But unexpectedly, in one of her arms, Seryu had hidden 2 guns. She fired directly at Sheele, but Sheele blocked the shots and continued to cut away the guns. Suddenly, Seryu ordered Koro, in a frenzy, to transform into a monster with incredible strength and speed. Koro immediately captured Mine. It seemed like Mine would be crushed to death by Koro, but Sheele managed to come back in time. However, to their surprise, Sheele was shot from behind by Seryu, as she had hidden a gun in her mouth. But it wasn't over yet. The monster Koro rushed forward again and bit off Sheele's body. At that moment, Mine was incredibly angry and lost control. But unexpectedly, Sheele used her last breath to obscure the enemy's vision, allowing Mine to escape. Sheele reminisced about her memories with the Night Raid group and the moments spent with Tatsumi. Since childhood, she had been subjected to contempt and hatred, which made her into a cold-blooded assassin. But thanks to Tatsumi, she was able to feel warmth and kindness. At this moment, Seryu was enjoying her victory, while Mine returned to inform everyone about Sheele's death. This news made everyone unable to accept the harsh truth. Tatsumi was so enraged that he lost control, wanting to immediately avenge Sheele's death. However, he was punched in the face by Bullet, as he was too weak at that moment. Although deeply saddened by Sheele's death, the group had to try and regain their composure to keep moving forward. Meanwhile, at the palace, General Esdeath and the Beast Triad had returned. Because Esdeath was so strong, even the Prime Minister didn't dare oppose her. Esdeath said that she would help destroy Night Raid, but only if she could experience the taste of love once. The young king introduced the Prime Minister to Esdeath. However, Esdeath immediately rejected him, saying he was too old, just a shell of a man, and no longer had the strength to meet her standards. The next day, Tatsumi was determined to train, knowing that he needed to become stronger. On the other side, Esdeath ordered the Beast Triad to do whatever it took to destroy Night Raid. They impersonated Night Raid and killed several politicians to lure them out. Although the group knew this was a trap, they divided up to protect Night Raid's honor and track down the enemy. Tatsumi went with his older brother on a boat. At this point, Bullet had used his camouflage ability, which was part of his armor's power. Suddenly, one of the Beast Triad, the boy, blew a whistle, causing everyone to fall unconscious. But Tatsumi continued to struggle to resist. Tatsumi was then found by one of the enemies. He charged at him, but the enemy was too strong, causing Tatsumi to be pushed back. Seeing that Tatsumi was in danger, Bullet came to his rescue with a powerful punch. Bullet decided to face the enemy and told Tatsumi to observe closely while he fought. Bullet summoned his armor. Unexpectedly, all 3 enemies attacked him simultaneously. However, Bullet did not retreat. He immediately knocked 2 of them out of the way. He killed the remaining one in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, one of the enemies recognized Bullet. It turned out that this man was Liver, Bullet's former commander. Liver began using his Tegu, which allowed him to control water. Liver attacked Bullet, but Bullet successfully blocked his strikes. The other enemy was about to continue using his flute against Bullet. However, Tatsumi stopped him. Tatsumi took responsibility and held the boy off. On Bullet's side, things weren't looking good as Liver continued to attack with water columns. The pressure caused Bullet's armor to start cracking. Liver thought he had defeated Bullet, but unexpectedly, Bullet appeared above him. Just as Bullet was about to land the final blow, the flute boy took down Tatsumi and charged toward Bullet, but was knocked away by him. At this point, Bullet's armor had disappeared because he had reached his limit. However, Liver was also injured and could no longer continue using his Tigu. Suddenly, Liver injected a strength-enhancing drug into himself. Bullet drew his weapon, and both of them continued to attack each other furiously. Just as Bullet was preparing to deliver the finishing blow, Liver revealed his last card. He used his own blood to try and take down Bullet. Despite Bullet's efforts to block, he was seriously wounded. Liver was also defeated. However, Bullet had been poisoned by Liver's blood, due to the drug he had injected earlier. The situation wasn't over yet. Tatsumi had forgotten about the flute boy. The flute boy used his music to enhance his physical strength. Bullet could no longer fight, so he entrusted his Tigu to Tatsumi. Tatsumi hesitated because he wasn't confident in his own strength. Bullet then punched him, urging him to trust his own power. Tatsumi stood up and used the Tigu. But suddenly the armor mutated and began to evolve. Tatsumi then wore Bullet's armor and defeated the flute boy with a single punch. Although Tatsumi won, Bullet could no longer hold on. He passed away, leaving all his hopes in Tatsumi's hands. Tatsumi was deeply distressed, having lost another teammate and his mentor, who had always trained him, because they had lost 2 teammates. Tatsumi and Lubbock trained even harder. Mine's heart began to race when she saw Tatsumi's determination. Due to the loss of 2 members, the group leader had to return to the headquarters to recruit new members. On Esdeath's side, after losing her 3 subordinates, she formed a new team of Tigu users. The new team consisted of 6 mysterious individuals, including Seryu. Esdeath became the leader of the team, which was called Jagger. The next day, Esdeath organized a match to find someone suitable to be her lover. Tatsumi also participated in the match to gather more information about Esdeath. With a cold expression and the battles he had experienced, Tatsumi quickly defeated his tough opponent. It surprised everyone, and even Esdeath, the Ice Queen, had to fall for Tatsumi. So, she walked up to the chained collar and kidnapped Tatsumi in front of the astonished crowd. And even his teammates. At this moment, the Jaeger group was on a mission to test their abilities. Tatsumi was also there, having been captured as a reserve member for the group. When Tatsumi saw Seryu, he was very angry, but that emotion quickly faded when Esdeath held his hand. At this time, Seryu had become much stronger, able to rely on her dog-faced weapon, transforming her hand into a deadly weapon. A scientist had created a weapon for Seryu, a girl named Kurome, with excellent swordsmanship, and she is also Akame's sister. And here is the fish seller, named Wave, a masked man named Bowls, using Tigu to shoot fire, a bookworm, using Tigu in the form of wings. Tatsumi was very surprised when he saw their powers. But when he saw the cute Esdeath before him, not as cold as he thought, he came up with the idea of persuading her to join his side. That night, while in his room, waiting to be eaten by his sister, he was once again tempted by Esdeath and lost his first kiss. But when Tatsumi wanted to persuade Esdeath to join the revolutionaries, his sister slapped him, as a general of the empire. That was an insult to her. But Esdeath still liked Tatsumi, saying he would always be there and protect her. At that moment, his sister told him it was late and to go to sleep. But he insisted on sleeping on the sofa. So Esdeath grabbed his hand and promised that she would only sleep and do nothing to him. The next morning, Tatsumi looked like this, having been Esdeath's body pillow all night. At this point, Esdeath assigned the group a mission, so she could find a way to win Tatsumi's favor. Tatsumi saw this as an opportunity to escape. Taking advantage of Wave's inattention, he secretly used his armor to escape. Tatsumi thought he had escaped, but he didn't expect Wave also had a Tigu armor like his. And he caught up with Tatsumi. But because Tatsumi was wearing armor, Wave didn't recognize him, only knowing that this was a member of Night Raid. At this moment, Tatsumi was constantly trying to escape. And finally, he managed to escape from Wave thanks to his invisibility ability. Wave, on the other hand, was being punished for letting his sister's flag bearer escape. So Tatsumi returned to the base and told his team about the Jaeger group. But at this moment, the scientist had brought his subordinates and found the Night Raid base. He launched an attack. Leone was suddenly attacked by a man wearing a black helmet. Lubbock also discovered the enemy and killed him. But unexpectedly, the man was still alive and attacked him back. Despite this, Lubbock couldn't be harmed because he had wrapped wire around himself, creating a defensive armor. Lubbock then turned the wire into a spear and easily killed him. But while one man could still fight, when a whole bunch of them emerged, Lubbock ran for his life. Fortunately, Akame arrived in time and finished them all off. Otherwise, there was a chance they would have been overwhelmed by them. But those were just some soldiers. At this moment, another person appeared, rushing in to attack Akame with wooden blades emerging from his body. Akame cut off one of his arms. But since he was a transformed person, he wasn't affected by the curse of her sword, and he continued to attack Akame. Though unsuccessfully, in the end, he was sent to meet his end by Lubbock with his spear. Meanwhile, Tatsumi was facing a man using Sheele's Tegu. This made him extremely angry, and he rushed in to attack, but was cut through his armor. While he was struggling, Mine appeared and blew the man away with a single shot. She recovered Sheele's Tegu, but suddenly, the leader's sister returned, bringing along 2 new members. The man in the black helmet thought he had defeated Leone, so he tried to sneak attack Mine, but Leone jumped out and kicked him, causing his teeth to relocate to a different place. While Leone was controlling him, he tried to sneak attack her again but failed. So, he was taken down by her finishing blow. At this point, the group had gathered and was surrounded by soldiers. But suddenly, the scientist released poison, paralyzing everyone, leaving only Tatsumi able to move. When the group was in danger, a man suddenly appeared. His name was Susanoo, a new member of the group. He single-handedly charged in and easily defeated all the soldiers. Everyone was amazed by Susanoo's strength. At this point, the scientist detonated his soldiers to eliminate Susanoo. This caused Susanoo's body to suffer serious damage, but he was able to recover. It was then that Tatsumi's group learned that Susanoo was actually a biological Tegu. So, he charged towards the scientist, realizing he was no match for Susanoo. The scientist used his trump card to transform into a giant. He even ate his own subordinates to boost his strength. Seeing that Susanoo couldn't handle the giant alone, the group decided to attack together. Mine shot down the giant. And at this moment, Tatsumi carried Akame and charged straight towards the scientist. He delivered a decisive blow to the scientist, since the location of their base had been compromised. The next morning, they moved to a new location. This new girl, who is also a new member of the group, is Chelsea, who loves to tease everyone. Meanwhile, Susanoo has a cleanliness obsession, but he also does a lot of chores. At this moment, the group was rebuilding their base. Chelsea doesn't have combat abilities, but her Tegu has camouflage capabilities, making her ideal for espionage. Esdeath's side received the news that the doctor had been killed. This made Seryu extremely sorrowful, as she lost another person she cherished. However, Esdeath was very warm and embraced Seryu, comforting her. Suddenly, monsters appeared in the Empire, killing many civilians. Esdeath ordered the Jaeger group to eliminate the monsters to protect the kingdom. Tatsumi's group also took action to investigate the monsters to protect the people. Esdeath was on patrol at this moment, but she couldn't stop thinking about Tatsumi. She was about to find someone to vent her anger when, unexpectedly, she ran into Tatsumi. This made her sister lose control again, happily encountering her flag. However, the monsters interrupted them, so Esdeath swiftly eliminated the annoying creatures. Tatsumi was being hugged by his sister when another nuisance appeared. The stranger suddenly used a Tegu to transport Tatsumi and his sister to an island. Tatsumi thought this was an illusion, so Esdeath kissed him to prove that it was real. Tatsumi was now thinking of a way to escape from here, but his sister saw this as the perfect time for a date. Suddenly, a giant monster appeared, resembling the doctor. Esdeath was very strong, knocking it down with just one move. Tatsumi didn't stay idle and rushed in to kill the monster's host. But another monster appeared, so the sister showed her strength, defeating it in one move. Tatsumi realized that Esdeath's power was on a completely different level than his. Both of them continued exploring the island, but it felt more like a date. By evening, the two spent some sweet time together, but they didn't do what Oni wanted to see. At this moment, Esdeath shared her past with Tatsumi. She came from a strong tribe in the north, born in a dangerous environment full of monsters. Because of this, Esdeath was trained in killing from a young age. Esdeath's father was the tribe leader. Once, her tribe was attacked and completely wiped out. From that point on, Esdeath became even more convinced that only the strong could survive. She then revealed to Tatsumi that the location of her tegu was a tattoo on her chest. It was a blood-based tegu, uncontrollable by anyone, but Esdeath was the only one who had mastered it. From then on, the brutal general was born. At this point, Esdeath found a way to help both of them return. But suddenly, a ferocious beast appeared, so Esdeath ran to eliminate it. The teleportation circle was activated, and realizing this was his opportunity, Tatsumi decided to go ahead. When his sister returned, Tatsumi had already escaped, knowing that the two of them could not walk the same path. At this moment, both sides were approaching the final battle. The sister leader said that the revolutionary army was preparing to attack the imperial capital. They had a mission to eliminate a cruel cult to clear the way for the revolutionary army to strike at the imperial capital. Seeing Tatsumi's determination, another girl fell for him. Knowing the Jaeger group's direction also led to the cult. Mine set up an ambush for Kurome, Wave, and the masked bowls. However, Kurome avoided it, and Susanoo removed his disguise and rushed in to continue the attack. He knocked Wave far away, rendering him unable to move. At this moment, the group appeared, determined to defeat the members of Jaeger. Akame and Kurome met face to face. At this point, Kurome used the power of her sword, summoning 8 corpses and turning them into puppets to fight against Night Raid. Among them was a super powerful beast, whose single attack terrified the entire group. But at this moment, Susanoo fought the beast alone. Meanwhile, the others were held back by the annoying puppets. These were once very powerful individuals whom she had gathered from various places. At this moment, the team leader rushed to help Leonie. But unexpectedly, she was ambushed by Kurome from behind and lost an arm. Leonie, furious, was about to attack Kurome, but the team leader advised her to stay calm and go help Akame. Although the whip wielder was strong, the team leader was not weak and easily eliminated him. She then ran to where Susanoo was. She ordered Susanoo to use his secret technique by transferring her energy to him. As a result, Susanoo was unleashed in his final form. He was now easily able to block the beast's attacks and took it down for the second time. Akame was being held back by Bowls and the other man. Despite trying to approach Bowls, it wasn't easy to defeat him, and she was blocked by the other man. Luckily, Leonie arrived just in time. Tatsumi was being pummeled by a monkey and a red-faced man. The monkey was too strong, and the other man was too fast, making it difficult for him to defeat them. But Chelsea stepped in at this moment. The team leader used her tegu to disguise herself as the tribe leader of the red-faced man and assassinated him. Although they were corpses, they still retained their consciousness. Only the monkey remained, so Tatsumi easily took it down. Mine was about to assassinate Kurome but was spotted by her bodyguard. She was then attacked by a girl who loved using a 20-centimeter long rifle. Since Mine was an expert marksman, she easily took the girl down. Suddenly, a giant toad appeared, capturing and swallowing Mine, but Tatsumi also ran to help. He was stopped by Kurome's bodyguard. At this moment, Mine managed to escape from the toad. Although her clothes were torn, she was free. The team leader, along with Susanoo, flew over. As a result, Kurome was surrounded by the entire group. On Akame's side, she and Leonie teamed up to attack. Akame cut off the leg of the head of the cult. As Leonie rushed in to attack, the head of the cult unexpectedly still had enough strength to shoot at Leonie. Bowls was about to attack her, but the team leader continued charging forward and bit off his gun. Akame killed the head of the cult, leaving only Bowls. Realizing the situation was dire, he activated his tegu, causing a terrifying explosion, but thanks to Leonie, Akame was kept safe. On Kurome's side, the explosion inadvertently freed her little sister. At this moment, Bowls was still alive. He always wore a mask because he thought people would be afraid to see his face. But unexpectedly, no one was scared, and they welcomed him, making Bowls feel warmth here. But at that moment, he saw a little girl crying from her injuries. The girl was terrified when she saw Bowles, but he was very gentle and helped her bandage her wounds. Bowles felt happy when he saw the little girl smile at him. But suddenly, he was attacked by the girl. Surprisingly, the one who attacked him was Chelsea. Chelsea revealed that the girl was from the village that he had once burned down. In the past, he had burned many innocent people alive, following orders from his superiors. This haunted him with guilt. But Bowles still had a wife and a child. Only his family gave him hope, allowing him to continue living. As he died, he remembered his family. At this moment, Chelsea disguised herself as Bowles to continue pursuing Kurome. The group returned safely, but suddenly, Lubbock ran back to inform them that Chelsea had gone alone to assassinate Kurome. So, Tatsumi and Akame immediately went to find the team leader. On Chelsea's side, she managed to approach Kurome. Seeing that Kurome was exhausted, Chelsea realized this was her chance. So, Chelsea struck at Kurome. She thought she had taken down the little sister. But unexpectedly, Kurome recovered and was even more terrifying than before. Sensing the danger, Chelsea ran away. When she tried to use her Tegu to escape, she was attacked, and her Tegu was destroyed. The team quickly caught up with her, and she was constantly attacked. Feeling that death was approaching, Chelsea thought of Tatsumi, regretting that she would never see him again. She could never tell Tatsumi that she liked him, because he was the only one who understood and recognized all the sacrifices she had silently made. On Tatsumi's side, he had followed the trail and arrived in the capital, hoping that Chelsea was still safe. But Tatsumi couldn't believe what he saw. He was utterly despairing, having lost another teammate he cherished. Despite the sorrow, the group knew they had to continue to overthrow the Empire's rule. On Esdeath's side, she met Boric, a trusted subordinate of the Prime Minister. Boric was the leader of a cult that specialized in kidnapping women, drugging them to make them obsessed and follow him. He had a group of followers known as the Four Demons. At this moment, Tatsumi and Mine were traveling together. Mine noticed how much Tatsumi had matured since joining the group. He had learned to control his emotions after Chelsea's death. On Lubbock's side, he was discovered by two members of the Four Demons. They began to chase him. The old man knocked Lubbock down, leaving him lying on the ground. Lubbock pretended to be dead to trick the old man into leaving. Suddenly, a girl appeared and was threatened by the old man. Because of his obsession with girls, Lubbock had no choice but to fight the old man to save the girl. Lubbock had to fend off the attacks from two members of the Four Demons. But he counterattacked them in a very cool way. Afterward, he quickly turned around and ran away. The old man immediately chased after him, but it was all a trap that Lubbock set to lure him. He easily took the old man down. Now, only the girl remained. She demonstrated her ability to destroy the traps Lubbock had set, using some kind of slime-like substance, which she claimed was sweat. But Oni felt it wasn't sweat. She then attacked Lubbock at lightning speed. Realizing he was in danger, Lubbock threw two daggers, but she dodged them. As she was about to land a finishing blow on Lubbock, he used his special move, complimenting her on being cute. But it failed. Unexpectedly, the two daggers had been tied together by Lubbock, and they came back to attack her. In the end, he defeated her, but as he walked away, he felt regretful, thinking she was cute. Meanwhile, Akame was fighting a man who used to be one of her acquaintances when she worked in the Empire's assassin group. His body was strange, able to stretch, and he continuously attacked Akame. He even ripped her clothes. If only it had ripped a bit more, there would be more to watch. But his mistake was taking Akame's cursed sword, and she rushed at him, snapping his neck with incredible speed. However, he was as persistent as a parasite and didn't die. So, Akame ended up slicing him into pieces. On Mine's side, she was still excited about making Tatsumi go shopping with her. While they were playfully arguing, suddenly, a guy stepped out to interrupt them. He said he saw the red thread of fate between them and suggested that they confess their feelings. This made both of them constantly embarrassed when they interacted with each other. However, they didn't realize they were being watched by Seryu. She pulled out her weapon and relentlessly attacked both of them with a powerful strike. Tatsumi used his armor to shield Mine and protect her from the bullets. Just when they thought they were safe, the last member of the Four Demons ambushed them. Tatsumi, wanting to protect Mine's escape, engaged in combat with her. She used her martial arts skills to knock Tatsumi down. Realizing her close combat ability was too strong, Tatsumi destroyed the ruins and defeated her. Meanwhile, Mine decided to fight Seiryu to avenge Sheele. Seiryu kept using her powerful weapons to attack Mine, but Mine wasn't weak either and continued to defend against her strikes. Seiryu taunted Mine, saying she would let her dog, Koro, eat all of Mine's friends. She then continued to attack Mine with Koro, but Mine had prepared for both of them, continuously attacking Koro to prevent it from recovering. When the bullet finally reached its weak point, Seiryu ordered Koro to transform. Blocking Mine's attacks, Seiryu continued to unleash powerful firepower toward Mine. Mine was struggling because Seiryu had become much stronger than before, leaving Mine immobilized and finding it difficult to fight both Seiryu and Koro. However, Mine refused to give up. The more pressure Mine was under, the stronger her attacks became. This was the power of her Tigu. Mine unleashed her final attack, cutting Koro in half and slicing through Seiryu's body. At this moment, Mine won and successfully avenged Sheele. But unexpectedly, Seiryu still had one last trump card. She activated the bomb inside her body. Mine tried to escape, but she was exhausted from the battle. She thought she was going to die and wouldn't be able to see everyone again. Just then, Tatsumi arrived in time to save her. Although they often argued, at that moment, both felt a deep connection. Mine thought that once the battle was over, she would confess her feelings to Tatsumi. Meanwhile, the night raid group attacked the cult. Akame and Lubbock completed their mission, eliminating Boric, the cult leader. Back at the capital, the imperial officials could no longer sit idly by. As the revolutionary army was drawing closer to the city, the minister had assembled a group led by his son, Sheele, who was also the one who had transported Tatsumi and Esdeath to the deserted island. Tatsumi and Lubbock were led into the palace by a female spy working for the revolutionary army, to assist the revolution from the inside. However, they were unexpectedly discovered by Sheele. As they prepared to attack him, Tatsumi was suddenly stopped. The one who stopped Tatsumi was General Budo, the second strongest in the empire. Just below Esdeath, Budo attacked Tatsumi, leaving him unable to defend himself in time. With no other choice, Tatsumi had to fight Budo. But Budo was incredibly strong, making it difficult for Tatsumi to land a hit. Meanwhile, Lubbock was facing off against Sheele. Sheele was toying with him, and his Tigu allowed him to manipulate space. Sheele used his Tigu to mark various places in the palace, allowing him to teleport freely to any location. Lubbock thought he could avoid it in the air, but to his surprise, teleporting was part of Sheele's ability too. As Lubbock thought of ways to fight the annoying Sheele, suddenly, the woman intervened to hold him back. She did so because her family was being threatened. However, Sheele advanced and killed her for daring to interrupt his fight. Lubbock was furious when he realized that Sheele had no respect for women. In a swift motion, Lubbock severed Sheele's arm. It turned out that Lubbock had set up traps all over the place during their fight. However, the woman still had one last breath left, and she attacked Lubbock from behind. She pleaded with Sheele to spare her family, but she didn't know that her family had already been killed by him long ago. Sheele retrieved his Tigu and delivered a decisive blow to Lubbock, teleporting him to another dimension where he could never return. However, Lubbock had prepared for this and tricked Sheele into being trapped in the same dimension with him. Lubbock unleashed his final attack, striking at Sheele's heart, killing him. But when Lubbock teleported out of the dimension, he found himself suspended in midair. Lubbock's Tigu had reached its limit. Realizing this was his end, Lubbock reminisced about the joyful times with the night raid group. What made him regret the most was that he never got to confess his feelings to the leader, Akame. Meanwhile, Tatsumi had been captured by the general. What devastated him the most was seeing Lubbock get killed right in front of his eyes. The minister decided to publicly execute Tatsumi, hoping to lure the remaining members of Night Raid out. However, Esdeath stepped forward to oversee the execution, wanting to protect Tatsumi. Despite trying to convince Tatsumi to join her side, Tatsumi firmly refused. So, Esdeath made the difficult decision to execute Tatsumi herself. On the other side, the remaining Night Raid members had learned about Tatsumi and Lubbock's fates. Mine, despite knowing it was a trap, was determined to save her crush. Tatsumi. The entire night raid group decided to go with her. The day of Tatsumi's execution arrived. Esdeath, now a general of the empire, was forced to carry out the execution herself. However, Mine arrived just in time, attacking Esdeath to prevent the execution. The rest of the night raid team showed up as well. Akame, the leader of night raid, along with Susanoo, began fighting Esdeath. The two were once close friends, but they had parted ways due to differing ideals. They attacked Esdeath together, but couldn't land a blow. Esdeath counterattacked, freezing Susanoo completely with a single move. However, Akame activated her secret technique, transforming Susanoo into its final form. While the speed and power increased drastically, they still couldn't touch Esdeath. On the other side, Mine and Leone confronted the general. Even though they attacked together, they couldn't break through his defense. The two fought directly, but the general was too strong, easily dominating Mine. Despite the overwhelming odds, Mine didn't give up because of her determination to save Tatsumi, even if it cost her life. The general used his secret technique to attack Mine, but she stood firm. Mine, using every ounce of strength, launched a decisive attack. The power of her attack, fueled by her emotions, overwhelmed the general, sending him into the afterlife. However, Mine collapsed from the exhaustion. Akame infiltrated the palace, retrieving Tatsumi's Tegu and handing it back to him. Tatsumi immediately rushed to Mine's side to catch her. Meanwhile, Akame had successfully rescued Tatsumi, and he was now free. You should order the whole group to retreat. But Esdeath had used her secret technique at that moment, freezing time itself. This made everything completely motionless in front of her, and she attacked Susanoo, causing him to not understand what was happening. With just one kick, she made Susanoo completely disappear, thinking she had destroyed him. But unexpectedly, Susanoo regenerated, thanks to absorbing the energy from the leader. At this point, he was stronger and could stop Esdeath. But he couldn't hold out for long. He said his final goodbye to everyone, determined to sacrifice himself to help Tatsumi's group escape. Meanwhile, Tatsumi's group was trying to bring Mine back to base for treatment. But she no longer had time. So Mine decided to say her final words, expressing her feelings to Tatsumi. After giving Tatsumi a late kiss, Mine passed away in front of him, leaving him in deep sorrow. At this point, the group only had 4 members left, and after losing so many, everyone was deeply saddened, but they were still determined, carrying the hope of those who had sacrificed themselves to complete the mission of overthrowing the empire. Meanwhile, the empire was surrounded by the revolutionary forces, along with the uprising of the people against the tyrannical prime minister. Akame received a message from her younger sister, so she decided to go alone to meet Kurome. It turns out that when the two sisters were separated by the empire and trained in different environments, when they finally reunited and worked together on a mission, Kurome felt very happy. But one day, Akame realized the corruption of the empire, so she abandoned Kurome and joined Night Raid, leaving her sister in despair. From then on, the two began to fight each other. Kurome used her puppets to continuously attack Akame. Suddenly, a giant monster appeared, attacking Kurome, but her younger sister avoided it. Thanks to her puppet, no matter how much she attacked, she couldn't do anything to it. At the moment of danger, Kurome was saved by Akame, so the two sisters cooperated to defeat the monster. Akame rushed in and finished off the monster. But suddenly, Kurome continued to attack Akame, using the power of her sword to summon corpses to attack Akame. Akame dispatched them all in one strike, and as she advanced to defeat Kurome, Wave appeared and blocked her path. When he charged to attack Akame, Tatsumi also appeared in time to stop Wave. But Kurome wasn't happy about this. As her time was running out, she wanted to resolve the unresolved feelings she had with her sister after all these years. So the two continued fighting each other. Realizing that Kurome didn't have much time left, Akame defeated her, fulfilling her sister's wish. At that moment, Wave was in pain, because he loved Kurome but couldn't help her. But the one in the most pain was Akame. The next day, the group leader gave the team their final mission. It was to kill the prime minister. The revolutionary army had entered the capital of the kingdom. Tatsumi's group was now attacking the royal palace. But at that moment, Run, one of the last 2 members of the Jaeger group, blocked their way. He also realized the corruption of the empire, but he wanted to change it from the inside. So Leone stood up to fight Run, allowing Tatsumi and Akame to continue moving forward. The Prime Minister was now brainwashing the young king, telling him to use the Empire's ultimate Tegu to eliminate all the rebels, because only the young king could control it. Then Tatsumi and Akame arrived in time to destroy the Prime Minister. But when Akame attacked him, she was knocked back, because he was protected by the ultimate Tegu. At this moment, the young king activated his ultimate Tegu to wipe out the revolutionary forces. A giant Tegu appeared in the middle of the capital, causing everyone to be astonished. At this point, the young king had been completely brainwashed by the Prime Minister, and he continued to destroy his own kingdom. So Tatsumi rushed in to attack the giant Tegu, but he couldn't harm it and was thrown back by it. Tatsumi didn't give up and charged again, but was caught and thrown straight to the ground. No matter how hard Tatsumi tried to persuade him, the young king wouldn't stop. Thinking that Tatsumi was about to be defeated by the young king, Wave arrived just in time to save him. Because of the brainwashing, the young king continued to destroy his kingdom. Leone and Run had a ceasefire to rescue the children, so Tatsumi and Wave teamed up to continuously stop the giant Tegu. But they still couldn't bring it down because it was too powerful. This caused both of them to be constantly overpowered. At this moment, Tatsumi found the weak point of the giant Tegu, but that wasn't enough to defeat it, and both of them were knocked away. Suddenly, with his willpower, Tatsumi made his armor evolve once more. Tatsumi's speed and strength reached a new level. He easily dodged the attacks of the giant Tegu and charged straight at it to destroy it. At this point, Tatsumi had reached his limit, but the giant Tegu fell toward the civilians. Tatsumi immediately stopped it with the last of his strength. He succeeded in saving the civilians, but he had reached his limit and passed away in Akame's arms. At this moment, Esdeath also arrived, and despite being a brutal person, seeing Tatsumi die in front of her made her uncomfortable. She froze all the revolutionary army around her, leaving only Akame, so the two of them charged into battle. To end this fight, Esdeath continuously used her power to overwhelm Akame, but Akame also began to counterattack her. Because Esdeath was too strong, Akame still couldn't harm her. Akame continued to advance and attack Esdeath, but she was continuously overpowered by Esdeath's freezing abilities. Her strength was on a completely different level compared to Akame's, and Akame was knocked down, lying on her back on the ground, thinking she had defeated Akame. But unexpectedly, Akame stood up and used her secret technique. Esdeath sensed the danger coming from Akame's body. Akame had completely transformed. Her strength and speed were on an entirely different level. At this point, she could overpower Esdeath. This forced Esdeath to struggle against Akame's extremely fast attacks. And she was cursed by Akame's sword, so she cut off one of her own arms to continue enjoying the thrill of battle. The two of them continued to charge into battle. Akame continued to increase her speed to attack Esdeath, but Esdeath used her secret technique to freeze time, preventing Akame from moving. Thinking she had won, Esdeath realized that she was only facing an afterimage of Akame. When time resumed, Akame appeared above her and slashed straight at Esdeath. In the end, Akame won, but suddenly, Esdeath moved toward Tatsumi, embracing him, because her sister still loved Tatsumi and wanted to be with him even in death. And the two of them vanished together, leaving everyone stunned. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister was trying to escape, but he encountered Leone. The battle would only truly end if he was eliminated. Unexpectedly, he still had an ace up his sleeve, destroying Leone's Tegu, so he took out his 20-inch long gun and attacked her. Even without her Tegu, Leone was still more than capable of sending the Prime Minister to meet his end. Finally, the war truly came to an end, and Leone and Akame said their goodbyes, each heading down their own path. That night, Leone saw that the entire kingdom was rejoicing because they had overthrown the tyrannical empire. But unexpectedly, due to her severe wounds, she too passed away. With a smile on her face, a new nation was established, under the leadership of the elder sister. Although everyone had passed on, Akame would continue her journey, carrying the hope of everyone to live on. This movie ends here, even though it took away many tears and caused quite a bit of frustration for Oni. But this movie is definitely worth watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to support Oni-chan in future videos. Thank you all for watching. Forever love.